Hello, welcome back to the Skyrim Archaeological Survey. I'm joined, as ever, by my brave fellow Skyrim archaeologist, Liv Westring. Hello, Liv.
Hello.
Hello. Are you steeled and ready for today's incursion into the Dustman's Cairn?
I am. I have done my research. I know what to expect.
Excellent. Now you were saying like only 80% of the tombs have Draugr in them.
Yes,
Only
yes.
only 8 out of 10. It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, so today we are at the Dustman's Cairn, an ancient Nordic tomb, which is located southeast of Morthal, and southeast of the Labyrinthian, which is, goodness me, that's going to be an interesting thing when we get to that in terms of our
Ooh.
survey. Yeah. The entrance is blocked until the companion's quest, proving honor, has been activated. But Liv is an intense gamer and has already done that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from Whiterun to get there, you head west past the Western Watchtower until reaching Fort Greymore, and then head north until you locate Dustman's Cairn. Now, just before we get into that, I just want to just quickly say an update on the Skyrim Archaeological Survey patches. Today, this isn't the most exciting thing, but today I took delivery of 100 bubble envelopes. So I have the envelopes to send them out when they're ready.
Yay.
And I'm going to put on screen now the current design, the final design, which includes our font, the Archaeosoup sort of Dark Ages style font there as well. So I think it just finishes off the design. I think because we were sort of consulting together on this, and initially I quite liked the slightly institutional kind of font, the basic font that was on the previous design. But as you said, it's more it's more fitting in some ways to have a slightly medieval font, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's
Yeah.
more on brand too, to
Yeah.
keep Archaeosoup font, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
whatever, Miss Corporate, getting all corporate on me. But no, I know what you mean. It just fits more. It fits much more nicely with our character, I think, definitely. Okay, so without further ado, let's approach Dustman's Cairn.
Mm-hmm.
So we're fast travelling to Dustman's Cairn, and here we are. There's your wonderful demonic horse, Shadowmere,
It's the most loyal of horses.
the most loyal of horses. Wow.
Nothing kills dragons like my horse and me.
And actually, immediately I'm noticing that it's interesting actually in terms of the use of language in these games. The word, so we've had barrow
Mm-hmm.
in the previous survey, and now cairn. They don't seem to be paying much attention to what a barrow or a cairn is, really, are they?
No,
No,
no.
no, because this is to me it's initially it looks more like some sort of stone circle with I don't know what could you describe that feature as in the middle in terms of real world archaeological features, because I'm not sure that it's an open kist perhaps, or
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe it's there's not really a word for it actually
No.
in archaeology, because frankly no, for the most part, megalithic, in particular monuments, don't tend to dig down. If they do dig down, it's normally a ring ditch or something like that.
Yeah.
And if they do have a ring ditch, it doesn't tend to be lined with blocks of stone. It would be maybe, in some cases, some crushed up rocks or sort of dolomite or this kind of thing, or a chalk. But there's not really a word for this. I mean, maybe this is an opportunity for us to establish some vocabulary, Liv. How exciting is that? We could call it maybe a something to do with a bowl, maybe like a bowl can, a
Yeah, a bowl cairn.
bowl can.
I think that sounds nice.
Yeah. Well, actually, in that sense, the previous one was arguably a dome or a dome barrow, and this,
Yeah.
this could be a bowl cairn. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can go. But it's interesting because this is actually, in that sense, quite literally the inverse of the previous
Yeah.
as well in terms of its impact in the landscape. Because I suppose from a distance you must be able to see the stones in the circle,
Hmm.
but I guess do you have less of a sense of this being in the middle, or do you think actually this is quite clearly on the summit? For example, down on the road when you look up, can you see the sort of the bowl? Is there a hint of the lip of the bowl, as it were? Do you think?
We could go and look.
Yeah. Because I mean, it would be cool actually to have more bowl cairns in the real world. That'd be nice. I wouldn't mind a bowl cairn.
It would.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine you were just like vacationing somewhere, and then you came to an inn, and they were like, "Hey, we have this ghost. Could you please? It's easy to see."
Just in the bowl cairn.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm on the main road now, so you can see the stones.
Yeah.
But you can't see
You
the
can't
bowl
really-
cairn in itself.
You can't, can you? And I think, or maybe actually, because again, it's not in that sense a cairn either. So maybe we should call it a bowl barrow. It's a bowl barrow.
Yeah.
So dome barrow, bowl barrow. There you go. Also, we don't risk sounding like we're studying the Balkans. With bowl cairns. I'm going to the bowl cairns. So yeah, bowl barrow. But also clearly though, I like the way that you have these two little uprights which demarcate an entrance.
Yeah.
And once again, we have these curious features of rings on those things. So a little bit like the pillars that we saw in the barrow. Previously. Do you think this could be a place where people would have been tied to, or do you think it's possibly a place where maybe a rope goes across, like a safety rope or something?
I mean, I imagine that you could put your horse there if it wasn't as behaved as mine.
Oh, good point. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you don't want to take your horse down those stairs.
You don't? No. Have you ever tried?
No.
No. Okay. And you wouldn't do that to Shadowmere anyway. He's far
No, I wouldn't.
No, far too lovely.
Even though it's a undead horse, I don't want to break its legs.
No. I do like though that in this bowl barrow we have this very atmospheric mist build-up. Now, mist does appear and has appeared in other barrows that we've looked at, or in the other barrow that we've looked at. But it's also actually quite reminiscent, I think probably quite deliberately, of, for example, the description of the barrow that's linked with Tom Bombadil in the Lord of the Rings, this kind of thing. So it's atmospheric. It's it's sort of calling out to be explored. But in that sense, do you think that you get any sense in this instance of this being a restricted place?
Well, it doesn't feel as restricted as the last barrow.
No.
I mean, you have stairs down. It's like it isn't hidden in the landscape per se.
No.
It's just not very obvious.
And I think that possibly this, maybe rather than restricting by removing from the road or being as part of the back end of a community, as we saw with Shroud Hearth Barrow, in this instance, what we have is possibly maybe an invitation even to look into the middle. But I think you've probably got to be quite brave to want to go down, though. I think that there is a sense of you can look but don't necessarily touch. Maybe. But also, bearing in mind the research that we did in the previous episode of the Skyrim Archaeological Survey, we do see that the fires are lit. Presumably, there must be a Draugr who comes out every now and then and just lights the embers. Yeah.
Tends to the little fire.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's my shift. I better tend this fire. So I suppose down we go. Yeah.
I mean, maybe he lives there.
Maybe. Oh yes, that could be the Draugr whose job it is to tend the fire. Yeah, that could be his little tomb. And it's interesting though that actually that particular sarcophagus there is not placed to be seen really. It's obscured from above by one of the steps there.
It is.
And in that sense, you wouldn't know, well, unless you saw the lid that's lying on the floor, you wouldn't know it was there until you were down here. So do you think that there's an element as well of a trap, perhaps, if someone does come down here?
I mean, if you want to have a security guard station to trap people who wants to go into your secret place or sacred place, then putting him under the stairs is far better than putting him out there if you want to like punish people rather than just scare them off.
I think so. I think you're right. Yeah. It sounds like your cat agrees with me.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, she
yeah.
does.
I think so. Okay, so shall we head in?
Yes.
Now, have we established what the symbol on the doors are? Because it's a common symbol that you see in all of the ancient Nord barrows.
I don't think we have.
No.
Mark?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I think we're going to have to do this on Sunday.
Oh, okay. How come?
You see that blocked door there?
Oh, yeah.
I don't find any other doors.
Oh, I see. Oh, what does that mean then, do you think?
It means that the cavern somehow is closed.
Oh.
Like they said, if the companion quest, maybe that has rebooted somehow.
Oh dear.
I have done my research. I know what to expect.
But Liv is an intense gamer and has already done that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here we are, 1 week later. We had some things to do.
We did.
We did. How are you feeling about that, Liv?
I mean, I have no pride left to lose, so that's fine. That's fine.
Now the thing is, there's difference between pride and ego. You see, isn't there? So you can have some pride, some self-respect, but you don't have to have an overly boisterous ego.
I'm just never going to use the words "I have done my research" again.
Yeah. Okay.
Ever
again?
No.
Oh wow.
No.
Okay, that's going to be interesting. An interesting life problem for you. But anyway, here we are. A week later, you have now done your research,
Mm-hmm.
and here we are in the entrance to Dustman's Cairn. And one of the first things that I think we spotted last time was actually the way that once again we have fires that are lit. This sense of the Draugr having their shifts going on,
Mm-hmm.
as mentioned in the book that we looked at in the last episode.
Yes.
But also as well, this tomb seems to be actually guiding you down towards a table, a set
Mm-hmm.
place, almost like a meeting place. But also as well, the vegetation at the entrance. Do you think that's a byproduct of moisture settling in the
I think
the
it
barrow?
is. I mean, this cairn is it's shaped differently than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have this protective bowl
Yeah.
or dome
Mm-hmm.
above it, which leaves it more open to weather and wind.
Yeah.
And it's also closer to the surface, I would say.
Yeah.
So you have more that can get inside.
Yeah. So compared to Shroud Hearth Barrow, this one's bound to be much damper in the entrance than that one. Yeah. Okay. So let's I suppose let's go down into the communal space, or well, certainly what looks from the entrance like a table at least, and also seemingly designed to be seen. So as you approach, you're going to know who else is here. It feels quite inviting, dare I say. And also we can see little benches set around the room. So is this a place for the living, or for the Draugr, or for what do you think this is going on here?
I mean, this very much looks like an entrance hall.
Yeah.
A place where you can come and you're obviously like either you can sit down or maybe you're meant to sit down, and then you have this table in the middle, and it's also right in front of the entrance to the barrow.
So it's clearly Well, the funny thing is, though, is that the table does act as as an impediment to proceeding, uh,
Indeed.
as does obviously stones collapsed in the doorway if you haven't opened up that doorway. But but when you can proceed through the
Open.
doorway, it's open now. It's open now. But when you can proceed through there, the table absolutely acts as an impediment. So perhaps as you come in, there's an expectation either that you put something on the table. Perhaps that's where you
Hmm.
deposit the recently deceased. We do see some elements of linen and other sort of shroud-like material, which is similar to some of the stuff that we saw in Shroud Hearthbarrow Blade.
Yes.
So perhaps this could be a place where the dead are placed, and then maybe you can sit and contemplate it on those two benches,
Yes.
or perhaps this is some sort of meeting place. Maybe this is where a living practitioner drops off a deceased to the Draugr to take them on down further into the tomb. I think
It's
I
very
think
possible.
I think I'm particularly interested at this point in this question of the the day-to-day what's the word, the caretaker element of the Draugr as
Yeah.
being involved in the running of the space, and
Hmm.
whether or not, if you were an ancient dragon worshipping Nord, the Draugr would simply be here to greet you as opposed to here to attack you.
Maybe.
Hmm.
We can also note that there is room for 3 Draugrs inside of this chamber.
Hmm. There's one over there that's, well, a couple that are sleeping, it seems.
Yeah.
Or rather, that you've dealt with ahead of time. But yes, so there are 3 sarcophagi here. And presumably, were these sealed when you first came in?
No, they weren't. They
Okay.
were actually, when I was going in the quote-unquote right way, these had already been dealt with those who were here before me.
Right. Oh, okay, that's interesting.
So I didn't have to kill them.
No, that is interesting. Okay.
It's also interesting to note that we did find a book
Mhm.
on this table when we came here.
Uh-huh.
And it's a book that I lost then. Here it is. It's the Battle of St. Kritor. And it was deliberately placed on the table as if it was meant to be found there.
Okay, that's interesting. And also so that this could be an element of again the reflections that people are making when they come into the tomb, or maybe it's, I don't know. Could it be been put there for Draugr to read? Who knows? It could be, but
Maybe they get bored, I imagine, if they're sentient.
Maybe, especially if it has been inferred that maybe they have language. That could be an element of that. But what we'll do is we'll assess some of the documents that we find in this tomb in the next episode. I think it's probably a good idea to think about moving on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we come in here, and this was obviously blocked the last time we were here. It's not anymore.
Incidentally, just to check, did you actually pick up the book?
No, I didn't.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we can.
It is picked up now.
Excellent. So once again, there's a slight element of lag in going on in terms of what I can see, but that's just par for the course for long distance Skyrim archaeologists.
Mm-hmm.
So so as we go in, the passage takes a turn to the right, which is quite significant in terms of, again, line of sight and entrance.
It is.
It's as though we are
It's
passing.
also, I think, worth mentioning that this was blocked off and has been quote-unquote broken into, which is what gives you access to the tomb. So it wasn't something that was available for anyone.
No, indeed.
And it's a quite rough path, as we can see.
It is actually, isn't it? And so actually, as soon as you get around the corner, things do get a bit rougher, a bit less obviously honed and shaped by masons, and also a bit more familiar. This feels a bit more like the interior of Shroud Hearth Barrow as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to something different. So do you think then that actually the line of sight element and the fact that it looks a bit more bright and airy upstairs is an indicator that maybe that is where the living are coming in and
I
maybe
think
interacting
so.
with the dead?
I
Okay.
think so. I also think that this isn't as a it doesn't seem to be as a public a
No.
barrow
Mhm.
as Shroud Hearth.
No, no. No, it doesn't actually, does it? It seems, yeah. Well, in that sense, yeah, we touched on that in terms of its placement in the landscape, definitely. Yeah. So here we have some familiar features, and actually, I imagine that actually as we proceed, it's probably going to be a case of not having to look at these features quite so closely in each barrow. But once again, though, in this one we have a series of catacombs, very familiar
Yeah.
placements of the dead, and also in this instance, there's no one way through either. There's a series of
Uh,
antechambers leading off from the central corridor, which is quite interesting. If you bring up the map of the tomb, can we see sort of the plan of this area at all?
Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. So that's quite interesting, actually. Again, it's a series of small pods, small chambers.
Hmm.
Do you think that there is an element of that again intended to separate out space? So if that first turn is an element of a measure of privacy, each of these turns is further separating out what is to come next, or
A bit. It also like this cairn has a lot more a feel of like that you have worked with the natural turns within the landscape. I would say
mhm, mhm,
than Shroud Hearth had.
mhm,
Like you see a lot more raw stone, at least
mm,
in this upper area. It
yeah,
seems not to be as ritualistic in its
no,
make.
no, no, that's true actually, yeah, yeah. So I think then this is the equivalent of a countryside tomb.
Yeah,
This is a less refined version then, perhaps. Interesting.
maybe.
Okay, okay.
So if we go on forth, you can see as we pass through, like there's a lot more vegetation, and you don't have the same like guarding elements
No,
on
that's
this upper floor.
yeah, yeah. And actually, by now in Shroud Hearth Barrow, we'd come across gateways and traps and
Puzzles.
yeah, yeah, blow darts and things like that. And also as well, it looks as though the material is much more strewn about the place, pots and things.
Yeah.
In that case, then, do you think this is a place maybe where the Draugr are not tending their shifts as readily as at Shroud Hearth Barrow?
It could be. I mean, we have this whole area with here we have a pillar that's like half across
Mm-hmm.
the path. A lot more spiders than Shroud Hearth
Yeah,
also.
yeah, definitely.
And
So
then
there's
you
been a
come into this space that's a bit cleaner, but it's still like in a fair state of disrepair,
mm,
I would say.
mm. Well, and how does how does that sit uh, with the quest then, the quest line? Because seeing as you have in the past week played through this quest, does that speak to what's going on in this particular tomb?
Well, this burrow is the quest itself is basically, and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this for anyone. It's basically a fetch quest
Uh huh.
where they're saying that this ancient part of a sword to this important figure within the companions is within this tomb, and we are going to go get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you do that, but they have very little information about tomb itself or why it should be there. Could be because they're not interested in the history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the exact quote from Farkas was that a very smart man came and gave them the information.
Okay, okay. So that they don't really engage with academic folk then.
I don't think so. At least he doesn't.
No, no. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, so it's like we think there's something down there. Let's go and get it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this space here, though, that we find ourselves looking at is again, it's interesting because it is that weird mixture of being rough, but also clearly very, very carefully, carefully laid out within the roughness. So there's some masonry going on in the central plinth there, but everything sort of above head height is still, as you say, it feels almost like a natural crevice within the rock, or geological formations that have been taken advantage
it's more
of.
like they have done something with a natural space than that they have taken a space and made it.
Yeah.
Like the waterfall and the whole thing in Shroudhearth, compared to this is very rough. And
No, definitely, without a doubt. It's interesting that in that sense, then already we're seeing sort of different characters within the tombs, and I suppose it leads me to wonder whether, as we proceed with this little project, this survey, whether or not we'll identify characters that portray, or say that hint at rather, different priorities. So, for example, in this instance, it may be the priority is simply either just get it done, or to work very specifically in honor of, or in harmony with the geology, or whether actually, because each of the tombs are sort of handcrafted elements by game designers, they are in that sense real world archaeology, computer game archaeology artifacts. Whether or not actually each one has been designed with a theme in mind, if you see what I mean, and whether or not that actually works with the coherence of the cultural aspects that we've been thinking about so far. I think. I mean, so in this instance, this definitely so far has a coherent theme. And that theme seems to be a slightly more naturalistic design.
And I think it's also worth pointing out that this is the first room in the barrow where you come across what is kind of a trap, but I don't think the trap is intentional.
Okay.
When you do the quest, you can go in here and pick up some potions, and you're looking for a way to open the other doorway. And when you pull the lever here, this door closes.
Okay.
And then the game tells you that the lever is stuck, so you can't reopen it. But you have to ask your companion to go and open the door for you. But since they use the word stuck, I would imagine that is a signal that it's actually malfunctioning.
Yeah, it's nicely designed to trap you. When you say this door closed, do you mean the door that's in front of, that's across from the throne, or the door to the little room where the lever was?
I'm going to see if I'm going to do this. I'm going to save, and then I'm going to close it. As you see, the lever is stuck.
Okay.
It's still stuck. So we're talking about, if you can see the spikes that I'm looking at, that is a doorway that leads you into that small space.
Yeah.
And then, but when you pull that...
So that's actually interesting. I guess, again, this highlights the two of the things that we continue to be aware of in this series. Is so within the game, culturally speaking, that is a piece of machinery that's malfunctioning. Within the game, in terms of level design or tomb design, that is an aspect where actually you need to work in conjunction with your partner or your follower to actually get through. So So it serves two functions, and I guess from an in-world archaeological perspective, it's just one of the hazards of
Yeah.
old mechanisms. Yeah.
Which,
Incidentally,
which is nice.
well, yeah, absolutely. I've just spotted that you can see that leaves are falling from the ceiling.
Yeah.
Is there actually an opening to the sky then?
Well, it seems to be some sort of daylight coming in. Yeah. There you go. There's a small opening in the top of the ceiling.
Interesting. Right. Okay. Okay. So again, this is not remotely in that sense the same as Shroud Hearthbarrow. This is open to the elements. Plants and animal life are no well, plant life and therefore animal life are encouraged to or allowed to continue to grow in here. And presumably this has always been a feature of this particular tomb.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting actually. I wonder if we'll see other similar relationships with nature in future tombs. But anyway, as we proceed, I suppose we've got another lever. Does that close the gate leading back into the main room there, does it? I take it.
Yeah, it's stuck as well.
Okay. Interesting, yeah. Now, I guess...
And as we see, more disrepair, more stones and dirt and soil that seems to have just fallen down throughout the ages.
Yeah, lots of material, but also some very familiar features as well, like the carved faces with beards on the walls, the sort of the dragon-like statues carved in a very dark stone. So repeating motifs, and also actually interestingly, I mean, at some point I'd be intrigued to know where some of that darker stone for things like the pedestals and similar artifacts are actually coming from, geologically, whether or not actually it's something that they're having to to import. Is there an ancient Nord kind of catalogue, like an IKEA or something?
Do they have a main designer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, whether or not that designer, where could that be coming from? Because actually, I mean, in real world archaeology, we often talk about we used to talk about things like megalithic missionaries, so people moving around spreading the good word of monument building. But I guess in this instance, I wonder where this impetus is coming from within the province, and whether or not it would be something like the Labyrinthian, perhaps, that kind of area. But that's another question for another day, I suppose. So yes, we have these plinths. What do you think these little pedestals are for then?
Well, they seem to be holding different kind of artifacts. We have an helmet in the first one, and then there's an empty, and then we have some coins and a flawless amethyst.
Yeah.
So it seems to be maybe it's
offerings,
some kind of offerings, or important things.
Yeah, but also interestingly though, in as you were saying, in amongst lots of collapse, so lots of small particles, soil build up, and it's clear that the shelves have the contents of the shelves have fallen on the ground at some point there. So I wonder whether that material, in terms of offerings, have been placed there more recently than some of this collapse.
Yeah, maybe. No, it's hard to tell also, because I don't know who would put it there.
No,
I mean, it would be the Draugr, I assume, since the door has been closed and was very, very firmly sealed.
Yeah. Well, and also in the context of one of the Draugr thrones, where it seems that they spend a lot of time sitting and waiting. Yeah. Also, as well, you can see in one of the alcoves there seems to be a human rib cage.
Yeah, and a skull.
Yeah. Nice. So, again, this could. I think it's one of those things, but this is one of the reasons why whenever you're doing a comparative analysis of anything, you need to get data. And I think the more tombs we look at, the more we'll be able to actually tell whether or not this stuff is an anomaly, or whether it's just simply part of a broader pattern.
I mean, there's a spine in the bookcase as well, so.
Oh yeah. Well, books do have spines. Hey! Do you know what? I don't know what's worse, that joke or the fact that earlier on in this video, I had a fly buzzing around my office. I don't know if people at home could hear that, but it was very off-putting. So, okay, as we go into the next space, then we pass seemingly between some wooden uprights. Interesting.
There seems to be a platform of sort
Yeah.
up here, or it's just a very, very shabby wall that's just, I would say, almost closing off the space into the next space.
But not quite. Yeah.
No.
So, in terms of, I mean, I suppose actually that kind of hints at what the next space might be, but it also forces you to pass through this space here, at least this smaller room, containing more catacomb-like deposit spaces for bodies. But I wonder whether, in the context of, say, ritual progress, there's an element there of, for example, I remember when I was lucky enough to go to Rome, we went down into the Pope tomb, where they had all these popes lined up. But as you went down there, and incidentally, I should say I wasn't there for personal religious reasons. I was just there because I was interested. But as we went down there, people who were very religious were positively buzzing at the prospect of getting in, and they were looking around the corner in anticipation. They were always looking to get a hint of what's coming next in terms of the experience. And I wonder if that sort of semi-completed wall or semi-collapsed wall actually offers that kind of excited progress hint, so people can go, oh, or is actually that space beyond not an area that we go into?
I can just second your experience in those papal tombs. I've been there as well, and it was a very interesting experience, especially when, well, I don't share that faith, but going there with people who did. And I mean, this is an interesting space overall, because you really need to move about to get anywhere in this tomb. I get a feeling that shroud hearths were more intentionally designed for ritual. It was a lot of straight passageways, and it was clear when you were on the path and when you were not.
Yeah.
This is just kind of you're moving into another room with some stairs and some alcoves and
So it's much
just a lot of tombs.
Yeah, it's much more piecemeal in that sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
So is that bloodstain on the or bloodstains on the floor? Is that your previous progress?
Yeah, silver hands trying to kill me and my companions, and it's was not appreciated.
I can imagine. So so we've passed through. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you actually do see beyond that wall there.
Yeah,
that is a crucial aspect of this, and I wonder whether whether there's that element of forcing people to go through either past revered dead or past Draugr who are waiting to pop out of their sarcophagi, is an element of we return to this element of protection as well as ritual. So in Shroud Hearth Barrow, it was clear that towards the end you were forced into a bottleneck where there were lots of Draugr waiting for you, and this one feels like it's a slightly more shall we say improvised version of that. They block off a wall and force you through a smaller chamber, an upper level, past some dead, either to contemplate them or to be confronted by them, one or the other.
And it's also noted that if you didn't jump off the wall like I did, you would be moving down these stairs, and the path ahead is clear. But if you turn around, you have a table. Here, with some potions and some coins and embalming tombs and stuff. that I wouldn't say is it looks like it's put there not for the passing visitor.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just like it's almost like and if it was if this was Disneyland, that would be where a member of staff is putting
Yeah.
material either that they're using or that's been given to them or whatever. Yeah, it's like a little side table. Yeah. Okay. But
But
so go on.
going ahead, we just come into more tombs,
Mhm.
more catacombs,
Mhm.
and we have more disrepair and fallen in stones and walls, some skeletons.
But also we do have that familiar, again from Shroud Hearth Barrow, familiar stone work. So
Yeah.
the carving of patterns. It's very reminiscent of chamber tombs, in particular in Ireland. I think I've touched on this in the Shroud Hearth survey. So it feels as though we are going now deeper and possibly even older as well, actually, because these catacombs don't look the bricks are no longer, they're much more chunky
Mm-hmm.
chunks of stone that are being used to construct these now, as opposed to slightly more refined catacombs that we saw even a couple of rooms back. Mm. The broken pottery, at some point, I'd love to make an episode on examining some of the pottery, and maybe I've definitely got a good art book or two, and we've bound to be some good materials online examining some of
Yeah.
these in-game models, because I would like to know whether or not some of the zigzags that we see on the sort of the large bowls that are often actually left intact, whether or not that's something to do with the ancient Nords and their dragon
Mm-hmm.
worship, things like teeth and claws and this kind of thing.
That would be really interesting.
Mm.
And going back to the barrow and the difference between this and the last one we did, I don't feel like you're moving through as many different aspects of it as you were in the last one.
No, no, I know, I
Uh,
agree. Yeah,
yes.
in that sense, there's less new and surprising reveals as you go through. It's sort of
Yeah, it feels less sectioned.
yeah, yeah. Well, actually, in that
And
sense, I think it all feels a bit more mundane, if that makes any sense.
yeah,
Mm,
and a lot more broken.
definitely. So, I mean, in that sense, do you think then that there's possibly an element here where I'm not sure if we've touched on this previously, but whether a little bit like in Fallout, where each of the bunkers in Fallout has a different character because they were conducting different social experiments on the inhabitants. Whether or not each of these tombs will have whether by design or by virtue of in-game culture, a different way of relating the dead to the tomb in that sense. Because again, in this one, as you say, collapse and the ingress of nature, the crack, the holes in the ceiling, the natural caverns being allowed to let daylight in, all this stuff seems to be reminiscent of intent. The idea is that this collapse will occur over time.
Indeed. And I mean, this part is so clearly collapsed.
Mm, mm.
And it seems like once upon a time, these pillars would have made it possible to move through the space on an upper level, it looks like.
Yeah.
But it's all collapsed and overgrown now, so you just have to zigzag through it.
Yeah, but it's also interesting because again, I was just thinking, but would you build that then to deliberately collapse? But actually, if you look at what's supporting the ceiling, that's wooden. Those are wooden struts
Yeah.
that are holding up the ceiling with these interior stone pillars. That doesn't speak of permanence to me. Again, it
No.
speaks of impermanence. Again, maybe.
Especially with a culture that is like knowingly creating undead people to tend to this space.
Yeah.
They would know a thing or two about permanency.
Well, exactly. Yeah, but and one also catering for the needs of those undead.
Yeah.
You know, i.e., not having the whole thing just collapse in on them unless that was the intent. If you see what I mean, which is interesting. And again, it makes me wonder whether or not there's an element here of different. Because again, we've established previously that the dragons didn't really they don't really care about people. It's a bit like the old ones in the Lovecraft mythos, where people may well be worshipping Cthulhu, but he doesn't care about humans. And so these different ways of depositing the dead and different expectations as to what happens to the tomb afterwards. It could be simply something that the practitioners are doing amongst themselves without any formal direction from above. You know, I'm sure a dragon isn't saying, "Well, in this one, you're going to build it this way." You know.
No. I don't imagine they would.
No. And so finally we have well, not finally, sorry, but and now we have another descent. It seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a trap.
Oh, nice, a nice trap. Now we've already talked about the question as to whether or not that mark on the button would indicate, would be something that if you're in the group you would know about and you'd know to avoid. But what happens if you step on it and you don't know to avoid it?
I don't know. I have too high of a stealth to trigger traps like that.
You're too stealthy. Okay. We see now. There you go. You've earned your hardcore gamer status back again. There.
Thank you.
But also, sadly, you don't have anyone to direct to set the trap off, do you either? So never mind. Now, actually, do you think that would be a legitimate part of Skyrim archaeological practice, having someone whose job it is to go around setting off traps?
Someone who's a lot burlier than the poor archaeologist, maybe. Could you please go stand over there? Are you going to get me?
Well, but the thing,
poked with spikes, filled with needles.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a log smashed into my torso again? Maybe. I don't know.
But maybe that's the thing. Maybe a Skyrim archaeological expedition requires lots of health potions, and maybe someone who's nice but not entirely considered.
Sturdy.
But yeah, nice and sturdy. I was going to say nice but dim. That's a phrase we use in Britain. Nice but dim. And they can just go, okay, I'll go over there. And they don't even necessarily notice that they're being. But I suppose what I'm saying is, I wonder whether actually having your stealth so high is an impediment to being able to fully appreciate the nature of the tomb. If you see what I mean.
I mean, I imagine that it is a bit like getting tenure. You have to move through all those caverns without that high of a stealth before you get it. So maybe you just that's how you weed out students in Skyrim archaeology.
Oh, I see. Okay. So whereas I used to worry about God forbid getting a 2-2 or something in an essay, it would be a case of worrying about whether or not you're going to be impaled in one of your class outings.
Yeah. If the professor suddenly looks at you and goes, "So, why don't you go ahead and document what's over there?"
I see.
You're like, "Oh, did I make him mad last semester? Did I do something bad in the last seminar? Is he using me as the trap trigger?" And then you go and something triggers and you hear your professor going from the back, "That's interesting.
Yeah.
Haven't seen that before."
Yeah. Oh, they lived.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
Well done.
How would you deem the quality of the spikes?
Yeah, well, actually, yes, yeah, precisely, yeah. But I know you're hyperventilating, but before the clarity of this moment escapes you, just give me a mark out of 10 as to how you feel.
Do they seem poisoned?
Yeah.
Are you feeling any untowards dizziness or nausea maybe that you shouldn't be feeling?
I think in other words, the people doing the universities or the colleges that offer courses for archaeologists in Skyrim will not have a high student satisfaction rating necessarily.
No,
No.
probably not.
No. But that's fine. In that sense, I'd much rather have a high academic rating than a student satisfaction rating. Okay, so anyway, the opening, the Dustman's Crypt. Yeah, okay. So Dustman's Crypt. Have we established what exactly the Dustman is then?
Dustman is a old Nordic word for Draugr, if I'm not miscorrecting.
And see, this is the problem, is that I can't remember if we said that in the opening to this video or in the portion that we had to fast forward through. But okay, yes, so Dustman, I do recall now. Yes, Dustman is an alternative name for a Draugr. Interesting.
Yeah.
But again, you see, I really want to look at that pottery more closely at some point. I think, there's definitely an episode on pottery. Yeah. Okay,
and
so
this is interesting. We come out in some kind of metal cage overlooking a room.
We do.
This is very different from even what we've seen earlier in this structure.
Well, yeah, and in that sense, the Dustman's Crypt, I suppose, now really feels like formal, planned architectural space. There's even wall hangings. There's all sorts of impressive stuff in this space. And also, as well, this seems to be an area that you go through, and you absolutely have no choice because you have to go around that central pillar. You have to sort of view.
Look.
You have to, you have to look at what's below, and presumably see whoever's gathered there, or whatever it is that you're going down to see. Or maybe actually it's a space where actually the people down there see you arriving. It could be both ways.
I mean, it would be impossible, or very hard at least, to sneak in.
Yeah. Interesting.
But then you go out in this rather rough staircase and down. Yeah. Well,
it seems as though that there's slightly less of a sense of collapse in this area.
Yeah.
You still have some of that that soil build-up, but you're not having these huge chunks of stone in the way anymore. No. I think something.
I mean, it's a rather long way to move, also, from that bridge and around. I'm just assuming that we're going to get out into the room sooner or later.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's a very strange, very, very strange feature to make just to go. Oh, and here's a room, but don't worry about it. And here it is. This is emerging into the room itself. Then. No. Oh.
It's a smaller room.
Interesting.
With someone apparently being embalmed on the table.
Yeah. Now this is actually our first proper opportunity to see a wrapped Draugr. I don't think we've actually looked at one yet.
Yeah.
It looks like it's not actually that delicate a process.
No.
It's almost like a series of just bits of linen are just fairly crudely wrapped around them. I think this is possibly because they know that actually the Draugr is hopefully going to get up and walk around, and so actually,
I mean, it would be irritating to like wrap someone super carefully and then they're up in like 7 days.
Yeah. But also as well, actually notice how in this room the linen is carefully placed on the shelves. You have another shelf there. Is that filled with candles? Is it waiting to be deposited?
Filled with candles. We have books. This is actually. We actually have like a sort of closet. With just a bookcase inside.
So in the context of Draugr doing shift work, this feels like a Draugr shift staging area, really. Here's some candles. You go and put the candles in, in your assigned room. Here's some linen. Or maybe actually it's a case of using the linen to prepare the dead, and then the dead go off and do their thing from here. But
Yeah.
again it feels much more ordered than what we've seen earlier
I
on.
mean, you also have urns that is stacked neatly on a table on the side.
We do actually, yeah, yeah. So, actually, that's a good point because you may recall I was wondering about why it is that you find a single coin in these
Hmm.
urns. Do you think that there's an element here of urns? Now, see, this really begs the question then. Okay, so if this is a room that the Drow are in, getting their stuff to go and do their shift and deposit things around the tombs,
Hmm.
do they pick up an urn from here and place them with a coin in them, or do they gather the urns with coins in them and bring them back here to retrieve whatever is inside the urn? Which way do you think it? Or do you think it just proceeds like that? So
I mean, I think it feels like an actual burial practice room.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, maybe you have people that aren't like corpses turned
Mhm.
into like the urns could actually be for people who have been either willfully or accidentally cremated.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
that still gets burial practice because you
Mm.
find coins in urns and you do find them on Draugrs as well.
Mm. Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
so that could be it.
Mm.
We're going to go and take a look in the next room.
Mhm.
Oh, so now we're out in the big room.
Right. Yeah. So that's quite a lot of. So actually, maybe you have people down here, or Draugr down here even. They see someone arriving, then they anticipate that person's arrival as they pass through those other areas, and then that penultimate
Hmm.
room is a little area where they get ready to come into this space, perhaps.
Seems reasonable.
Hmm.
I mean, this is a lot more formal. You have the coffins or sarcophagi put against the wall rather than just lining it.
Yeah, yeah. Each one with steps leading
Uh,
up to them as well. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm. Hmm.
Still some collapse and stuff, but it isn't as bad
No,
as
it's
it
not.
was
No,
earlier.
not as serious. It makes me wonder whether this almost feels like it's a. It feels oddly enough, it feels like a feasting hall, even though there's no
Yeah,
table and no chairs. But it feels like this could be the Draugr equivalent of that kind of meeting hall, that kind of. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
it absolutely feels like a formal space.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you have these big double doors leading further in.
Yeah. Now, so I'm curious then. Beyond the double doors, do we get any of the familiar things like the carvings of people carrying the dead or something like that? Or
Well, let's have a look. It doesn't.
not
No,
so far. No, no. Okay.
no. Just
No.
a set of smaller doors
Uh huh.
and another like prep room, it looks like,
Yeah.
with actual drainage.
Well, with drainage, that is important. Well, also it's important in this particular tomb, as we've seen earlier. Without flowing water, you get lots of plant life growing. But it
Yeah,
appears though that again more Draugr not quite in the. So I actually, here you go then. Maybe because obviously you had to kill a lot of Draugr when you came through. um,
yeah, I did.
but also it seems like lots of Draugr have not awoken. They've stayed wrapped up.
Yeah,
So could this be a tomb
maybe this.
that failed?
Maybe. I mean, it feels rather interrupted, I would say.
Hmm. Hmm. So almost like yeah, like the plan for this space didn't quite work out, maybe, or for for the entirety of Dustman's Cairn, and so
Yeah,
maybe they're understaffed, or maybe their shift patterns don't work because so many Draugr didn't wake up, perhaps.
maybe. And
Yeah.
it keeps weaving back
Mm.
and forth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I accidentally went back.
You did. It's okay. You're still a hardcore gamer. It's fine.
Thank you.
No, actually, also interesting because in that second staging room, you have the alchemy table as well. So again, this element of alchemy possibly being linked with the rituals for the Draugr, uh,
Yeah,
or depositing the dead.
here we go. This, and now we're coming into this really natural, like narrow space
Yeah.
and a natural cavern with a lot of spiders that are now dead.
No, actually, how close are we at the moment to the word wall at the end of the tomb?
Fairly close.
Because because in, for example, Dustman's Cairn, you had that moment where it absolutely went back into a narrow, almost like a miner's shaft, before you emerged into what
Yeah.
was essentially the focus of the tomb, the word wall. And it feels like that this is the equivalent of that, although obviously much longer. Uh,
Yeah, and this feels more. This feels less staged.
yeah.
I mean, if you look at the bridges,
Hmm.
they look like someone has almost like heaved another part of architecture there just to get over the water.
Yeah, yeah. It feels much more as though it's a matter of necessity, as it were, as
Yeah,
opposed to actually a formal experience passing through this area. Which again could speak to collapse. Maybe the original route
yeah,
has decayed over
yeah.
time.
I found the original route. It has collapsed.
Okay. Oh, I see.
See.
Yes. Oh, there you go. Now, interestingly, because of the lag, I had a little theory there that panned out to be true. That's quite interesting.
Yeah,
Like, but again, I think that's one of the reasons that we chose to look at Skyrim. It's not only because we like the
yeah,
game, but also because actually there is a coherence to lots of this. Because I think, cause didn't you pass through the other side of that original route, didn't you? On the way into this
yeah,
area. Yeah. Um, okay. So more catacombs.
yeah.
So maybe then instead of being the equivalent to that penultimate space before the word wall in Shroud Half, that was their way of getting around the collapse potentially.
Yeah, it looks like it. And I mean, that would explain the spider nest and all of that too.
Yeah.
This is really interesting because compared, I mean, you just unlock a door and then you get into the space where the
Mm.
wall is.
Hmm. Wow, this is positively palatial compared to the rest of
Yeah,
it. Yeah. Interesting. So actually, no. So actually, no. I think I'll go back a step. I'll go back to my other idea that actually there is an equivalence then in terms of passing through uh, a
but
rougher.
that equivalence doesn't feel. It doesn't feel intentioned.
No, no, no. That's true. Yeah. So
It
originally,
feels like we were just supposed to go around the corner, up some stairs, down some
yeah,
catacombs, and then open the door, and boom, there you are, word wall.
yeah. Okay, okay. So whereas in Dustman in Shroud Half Barrow, there was that element of the penultimate room with all the Draugr in, and then a little tunnel to go into the word wall
Yeah,
room. In this instance, yes, there's been a collapse, but actually you could have originally gone up those steps, gone past the blockage, what is now a blockage, and just emerged into this space. That actually, I love the fact that you have the upper and lower um, galleries almost as you go in on the right and
yeah.
left hand side. It's a wonderful area to walk into.
I mean, it really draws the focus to what's important, and that's the words and the wall and
Hmm.
the dragon worship.
Yeah, definitely, and plenty of Draugr here to greet you. Were there many
Yes,
here when you first came in?
yes, it took it. And this tomb also has a lot of very strong Draugr, and I don't know if that's because they're scaling it towards my level,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Just want to keep it
it
exciting for
was
you.
a fair decent of like hulking Draugr and Death Lords and all that jazz.
Okay, interesting. So the word wall itself, I have pulled up the transliteration here. So it says, Quethsegol va rukiv kir jun jafnar wo los ag nalas nal yol du lot dova lon lod dunost, which means this stone commemorates the child king Jafnar, who was burned alive by the fire of the great dragon Lod Dunost. Interesting. And so actually, so commemorates the child king Jafnar, who was burned alive. Now that's not necessarily, that doesn't seem as though that was necessarily part of the child king's plan.
No.
Or even necessarily planned regicide. It wasn't like they didn't speak about sacrifice or an offering to the dragon. Do you think this may well be a dragon that has simply attacked the child king, or maybe someone who's a regent handed over the child king, or
could be potential just warfare.
Yeah. And crucially as well, from that word wall, I believe you learn an element of fire. No, word of power bolded it is. So that would be fire. Sorry. So actually, you learn to speak fire from this reference to a dragon burning someone alive.
Yeah.
That's interesting as well. What do you reckon to this overall question then of the relationship between the people and the dragons that they are worshipping? Do you think it is akin to the elder gods in Lovecraft?
I think so. I mean, dragons aren't the most sympathetic creatures in Skyrim. Some excluded.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And I imagine it would be a service and a faith based a lot on terror and fear for the thing that you're worshipping, as much as reverence and the want for whatever knowledge they do have.
It just reminds me of Terry Pratchett's Hogfather, where children are visiting death and they go, they don't know whether to laugh, cry, or poop themselves. Now that's faith. And I can see that being a dragon's idea of faith as well. So, but I guess it comes back to this question of so this, if that wall and this space is commemorative, whether or not the people, even if it wasn't necessarily a planned sacrifice, whether or not the people who built this space and who cared for it, whether they built this initial room and then it was added to over time, and then that more sort of natural element came in later on at the earlier stage of the tomb. But whether or not they considered this to be an act of worship, or whether it was an act of was this a positive or a negative thing? I suppose is what I'm getting at. Were they going, yay, he was honoured to have been burned by a dragon?
I mean, I can only relate to some of the old Norse sagas and stuff. Where it is that it could be a bit of both. It could be it's a horrible thing for this person to have been burned alive by this dragon. But it's really awesome that someone got burned alive by a dragon, and it was an honorable way to go. It's horrible that someone gets slain in battle, but it's better than dying of old age.
Yeah.
And if you want to go down in battle being burned alive by a dragon, it's a pretty awesome way to go.
It's pretty
if you
high
want
up there.
Stories told about you and stuff like that.
And also as well, so if you look at I suppose, for example, Beowulf, one of his problems as he gets older is that he never has been killed by the monsters he's faced. So he gets to a point where he's too old really to relish the victory, but too invincible to die a grand honourable death. So he has to sort of put himself in harm's way really to manage it. Interesting. Although, again, I don't quite get the impression though that this child, because you don't say child king unless, you know, they're like 12 years old or less, really, do you? You know,
No, I would
so.
imagine like 5.
Oh dear, yeah, yeah. You go and play with the dragon. It'll be fine.
You just show him who's boss.
Exactly, yeah. I
It
am.
was the dragon.
Listen here, dragon. I am a king.
The dragon goes, yes,
Whoosh.
you are a snack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you are a barbecue, a baby Q, a baby Q. Hey! Sorry.
Yeah. Tasteless, Mark.
Tasteless joke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I took us too far. Too far.
Yeah.
But okay. So and presumably then this after the word wall, will this be one of those shortcuts that take us back to the beginning of the tomb? Then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. The lag is showing, but the way out is through a fake crypt.
Oh, it is. No, that's actually that. Now this actually helps to answer one of my questions from the previous tomb, in so much as whether or not this stuff is part of progress or not. You know, part of a formal way through the place or an incidental way through the place. And I think it's probably incidental, in so much as they probably have to have this way around in case of collapse or when making the space. But the fact that they've covered it up with a fake sarcophagus tells you that you're not meant to necessarily know that that's there. It's almost like a secret passage, I guess.
Yeah.
That gets you out, but it's not really. It's not. People, if they came to visit the commemoration, wouldn't normally use this as a way out. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's not meant for the public.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's not meant for the public. Yeah, yeah. A bit like the. I've actually been above the roof in Durham Cathedral, and that was both terrifying and interesting. When someone sort of saying, "So you're currently X many dozens of feet or hundreds of feet above the ground," it's like, oh. Sometimes space is not meant for the public. Aren't necessarily necessarily the most comforting of places.
No, no. And it's also interesting because here you also have a lever that opens up the wall so you can go out.
Yeah, so it's hidden on both sides then. Yeah.
And you come out behind a lot of like urns and pottery into the public space.
Yeah, so we're back in that initial room. And so actually maybe that would be let me think. If this is possibly the place where the living could commune with the Draugr, this could also be a place where living practitioners could scoot through the secret exit or entrance and visit the commemoration without having to go all the way through the tomb. Yeah.
True.
Interesting. So what's your takeaway from Dustman's Cairn then, Liv?
I mean, it feels, with all the wrapped bodies laying outside and like displayed on the tables, it feels like a tomb interrupted.
Okay.
Like they weren't they didn't manage to complete whatever they were doing before something happened. Maybe the collapse happened.
Okay. Yeah.
Or that would explain like why we have some skeletal parts within the collapsed masses as well. If we have actual living worshippers in there as it's happening.
So perhaps then this idea of intentional collapse is slightly misleading. Maybe what it is it's a combination of working within the confines of the rock, maybe some sort of veneration of natural processes, but then also collapse happened accidentally.
The layout of this feels like they have moved from natural caverns to natural caverns.
Yeah.
More than that they have like created the space artificially like they did in the last burrow.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. Even though, I mean, so the last, or maybe the first room to
Yeah,
have been built with the commemoration, that feels the most similar to Shroud Hearthbarrow.
yeah. And it
But
also honestly feels the most similar to the entrance room.
yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. So is it possible then that the very first stage of this monument would have been actually entrance room and the small passage to the commemoration, and it's just been added to over time? That said, though, the commemoration room is absolutely focused towards that entranceway, isn't it? So towards the way
Yeah,
that
it
you come
is.
in. So
Uh,
do you think that this small passage has always been for for people in the know only kind of thing?
for staff.
Yeah, for staff, exactly. Yeah, staff. Yeah, authorized personnel only. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, well, this has been, I think, a bit of an education for us in terms of making sure that we're on top of our processes. um,
Hmm.
but also, actually, I think it's a good start in terms of starting to gather more data. Because I mean, the initial exploration of Shroud Hearth was a real opportunity to take our time and spot types of features. But now, I imagine some of these surveys are going to be a bit. Well, rushed is the wrong word, but can proceed at a different speed because we're establishing features, but also
Yeah,
crucially, we're noticing now what is different. And in this instance, I think we've probably got round a bit quicker than we did do, or we otherwise might have done, because now we're starting to spot what's different, what makes this space unique compared to the others. Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
And it also gives us something to compare with.
Yeah, I think so.
Uh,
I think
we
so.
can talk about the differences in a more fruitful way.
Yeah, I think so.
I would say instead of going, "Oh, this is interesting," we can go, "Oh, this is interesting because in this place we saw this, and in this place we saw that."
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And especially, I imagine when we see maybe on to the next tomb, or even 4 or 5, we'll start to get a sense of this question of how structure and collapse and decay is whether or not it's
yeah,
actually factored into the construction or it's incidental. I think at this stage we don't know enough to be able to
no,
actually say yet. But it's definitely given us again some food for thought. So in the next episode, then, we're going to be reviewing the texts that we picked up in this tomb,
yeah.
which you said that there
Take
were,
the
was it
Lord.
2?
Yeah, I think I found 2 books going through here. I
Okay.
was a bit busy fighting Silverhands and Draugr, uh, so and keeping a friend alive.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Well, according
It
to
was a busy dungeon.
okay. According to the wiki, there was the Battle of Sancra-Tor as a book, as the Word of Power, Fire, which we've just, or Fire Breath, which we've just seen, and there was the Shard of Wuthrad, the quest item. So what we'll do is in the next
Yes.
episode is it'll be a shorter episode. We'll take a look at that book and any other aspects that have
Yeah.
occurred to us.
Maybe we
In
could just talk a bit about the connection between the companions and the shard as well.
That's a good idea. Yeah, yeah,
And since
yeah.
it's posited there, it's connected to the tomb.
So in this instance, it's part of the quest line proving honour, working with the companions to retrieve that fragment. And I suppose that it makes sense, yeah, to look at the text recovered from the tomb, and also the how it is that you as the player, as the Dragonborn, interact with the tomb in the game in that episode. So look forward to that, and hopefully from here on, a slightly less stressful production. But like I said, I think we've learned our lesson, haven't we? We've briefly hanged our heads in shame, but we managed to turn it around in the end.
Yes.
Yes,
We're wiser now.
we are wiser now. Exactly, wiser for it. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please do comment below if there's anything you think we've missed in this tomb, or anything that you'd like to see us comment on in future surveys. And as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.